Harry didn't sleep. Draco had left with Snape hours ago, and the longer the night stretched on, the more Harry's anxiety grew. He paced the Gryffindor common room, ignoring the curious glances from his housemates. Ron sat on the couch, arms crossed. "Mate, you need to relax." "I can't relax, Ron," Harry snapped. Lucius called Draco. "You know what that means." Ron sighed. "Yeah, and there's nothing you can do about it right now. You barging in isn't gonna help." Harry clenched his fists. Every instinct screamed at him to do something, but Ron was right. Storming into whatever mess Lucius had set up would only make things worse. He had to wait. He hated waiting. It was nearly dawn when the portrait hole creaked open. Draco stepped inside. Harry shot up from his seat. Ron tensed beside him. Draco looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, shoulders stiff. But he was here. That was something. Harry crossed the room in seconds. "What happened?" Draco hesitated. His gaze flickered to Ron, then back to Harry. "Not here." They slipped out of the common room and found an empty classroom. Draco shut the door behind him and leaned against it. "It's worse than I thought." Harry's stomach twisted. "What did he say?" Draco exhaled slowly. "He's giving me an ultimatum." He looked up, expression unreadable. "He wants proof of my loyalty." Harry's blood ran cold. "What kind of proof?" Draco hesitated. "He wants me to bring him something. Something from Dumbledore's office." Harry's mind raced. "What is he after?" Draco shook his head. "I don't know. He wasn't specific. But if he's asking me, it means he doesn't have any other way to get it." His jaw tightened. "And if I refuse, he'll know where my real loyalties lie." Harry's breath came fast. "Then don't do it." Draco let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, sure, I'll just tell Lucius Malfoy no and hope for the best." Harry took a step forward. "Draco, if you do this, you're playing right into his hands. You know whatever he wants isn't good." Draco pressed his fingers against his temples. "You think I don't know that?" His voice wavered. "But if I don't," he trailed off. Harry clenched his fists. Lucius was tightening his grip, forcing Draco into a corner. And Draco was scared. Harry wasn't going to let him do this alone. "We'll figure something out," Harry said firmly. "We always do." Draco exhaled shakily. "I hope you're right." But in his eyes, Harry saw doubt. And for the first time, Harry wasn't sure he had an answer. Draco sat on the edge of his bed in the Slytherin dormitory, staring at the silver serpent ring on his finger. A gift from his father. A symbol of his family's legacy. A chain around his neck. Lucius wanted proof of loyalty. A test. Draco had known for a long time that this moment would come, but he had always thought he'd be ready. Now, the weight of it threatened to crush him. He had two choices: betray his father, or betray his brother. A sharp knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Blaise Zabini stepped in, shutting the door behind him. "You look awful." "Thanks," Draco muttered. Blaise folded his arms. "I saw you come back late last night. What's going on?" Draco hesitated. He and Blaise weren't exactly best friends, but he was one of the few Slytherins who didn't blindly follow the Malfoy name. "I need to get into Dumbledore's office." Blaise's eyebrows shot up. "Are you insane?" Draco gave a humorless laugh. "Probably." Blaise studied him for a long moment. "Does this have something to do with Potter?" Draco stiffened. He should have expected that. "Why would you think that?" Blaise smirked. "Because ever since you found out you're his brother, you've been acting different. And now you're sneaking around, looking like you've seen a ghost." He tilted his head. "I don't know what your father's up to, but I can guess. And I also know you don't want to do it." Draco clenched his jaw. "It doesn't matter what I want." Blaise sighed. "Look, I don't know what's in that office, but if your father wants it, it's bad news." He leaned in. "So the real question is, are you going to follow his orders? Or are you going to choose a different path?" Draco swallowed. He wished the answer was simple. But it wasn't. Underscore 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 underscore. Meanwhile, Harry wasn't waiting around. He made his way to the astronomy tower, where Hermione was already waiting. She had a stack of books in front of her, eyes sharp with curiosity and concern. You're sure Lucius asked Draco to steal something? Hermione asked. Harry nodded. Draco didn't say what, but if it's in Dumbledore's office, it has to be important. Hermione frowned, flipping through a book. The problem is, there's no way Draco could get in alone. The office is warded with more enchantments than any other room in the castle. Harry's stomach twisted. That meant Draco would need help. Or he'd have to find another way to prove himself. We need to stop him, Harry said, before he does something he can't take back. Hermione bit her lip. And if he's already made up his mind? Harry looked out over the castle grounds, fists clenched. Then I'll remind him that he's not alone. Draco sat alone in the Slytherin common room, the dim green light casting eerie shadows over his face. He had spent hours running through every possible scenario, every way he could twist the situation in his favor. But no matter how he looked at it, it all came down to one thing. Lucius Malfoy would not accept failure. A part of him had hoped Harry would have a solution. A way out. But all Harry had offered was trust. And right now, trust wasn't enough. A voice cut through his thoughts. You look like you're about to do something stupid. Draco turned to see Pansy Parkinson lounging on the couch, watching him with a raised brow. Go to bed, Pansy. She smirked. Not until you tell me why you're sulking. Draco exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I have a choice to make. A bad one or a worse one. Pansy leaned forward. Is this about your father? Draco didn't respond, but she already knew the answer. She sighed. You know, for years, you acted like being a Malfoy meant being untouchable. Now you look like it's a curse. Draco let out a humorless chuckle. Maybe it is. Pansy studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. If you're looking for a way out, you won't find it sitting here. Draco narrowed his eyes. What are you saying? She smirked. I'm saying, if you're going to betray your father, at least do it properly. Underscore 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 underscore. Meanwhile, Harry was done waiting. He and Hermione had spent the entire night researching what could be inside Dumbledore's office that Lucius might want. There were too many possibilities, but one thing was clear. If Draco went through with this, it wouldn't end well. So when Draco slipped out of the Slytherin common room in the dead of night, Harry was already following him. Draco moved quickly, his steps precise, calculated. He didn't hesitate as he climbed the moving staircases, heading straight for the gargoyle that guarded Dumbledore's office. Harry's heart pounded. He had to stop this. Before Draco could say the password, Harry stepped out of the shadows. Don't! Draco froze. Slowly, he turned to face Harry, expression unreadable. You followed me. Harry nodded. You knew I would. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Draco sighed, rubbing his temples. Harry, I have to do this. No, you don't, Harry shot back. You think proving yourself to Lucius will change anything? He'll just demand more, push you further. And one day, he'll ask for something you can't live with. Draco's jaw tightened. You don't understand. Harry stepped closer. I do understand. I understand that you're scared. That you think this is your only way out. But you don't have to do this alone. Draco looked away, fists clenched. Harry lowered his voice. I don't care what blood says. You're my brother. And I'm not letting you go down this path. Draco swallowed hard. For a moment, he looked like he might argue. But then his shoulders slumped. And for the first time, Harry saw something else in his eyes. Relief. A choice had been made. Draco turned away from the gargoyle. Let's get out of here. Harry exhaled, tension leaving his body. But as they walked away, neither of them noticed the shadow lurking at the end of the corridor. Watching. Waiting. The moment Draco turned away from the gargoyle, a slow chill crept up Harry's spine. Something was wrong. Move, Harry whispered, gripping Draco's arm. Draco barely had time to react before the shadows at the end of the corridor shifted, and a voice, cold as ice, rang through the air. I must say, I'm disappointed. Lucius Malfoy stepped forward, his cane tapping lightly against the stone floor. Behind him, two figures in dark robes lingered, Death Eaters. Draco stiffened beside Harry. Father. Lucius tilted his head, eyes gleaming with something unreadable. I expected more from you, Draco. Given this opportunity, I thought you'd prove your worth. His gaze flicked to Harry, full of disdain. And yet here you are, a coward, swayed by him. Harry stepped in front of Draco. He doesn't have to prove anything to you. Lucius' lip curled. And you don't get a say in this, boy. His voice sharpened. You are a stain on our bloodline, a disgrace to the Malfoy name. Draco's fists clenched. He's my brother. Lucius' eyes darkened. No, he is not. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Lucius took another step forward, his voice smooth but dangerous. I gave you a simple task, Draco, and you failed. Do you know what happens to those who fail? Draco swallowed. His father never raised his voice. He didn't need to. The weight of his disappointment was always enough. But this time, something was different. Draco wasn't just afraid, he was done. I'm not doing this anymore, Draco said quietly. Lucius' eyes flickered with something, surprise? But it was gone in an instant, replaced by something much colder. I see. His tone was eerily calm. Then you leave me no choice. He lifted his wand. Harry moved without thinking. Expelliarmus. Lucius barely flinched as his wand was ripped from his grip. But his smirk deepened. Predictable. Before Harry could react, one of the Death Eaters sent a stinging hex his way. He barely dodged, grabbing Draco and pulling him back. Draco's breath came fast. We can't fight them here. Harry's mind raced. They needed to get out. Fast. Come now, Lucius drawled, stepping forward. Running away, Draco? Is that what you've become? Draco's hands trembled, but his voice was steady. I'd rather run than be you. Lucius' expression darkened. Then, Petrificus Totalis. A red jet of light struck one of the Death Eaters, sending him collapsing to the floor. Harry spun around. Hermione stood at the end of the corridor, wand raised, face set in determination. Ron was beside her, breathing hard. Took us a while to find you, he panted. Harry grinned. Perfect timing. Lucius' eyes narrowed. This is not over. He flicked his hand toward the remaining Death Eater. We're leaving. Harry tensed, ready for another attack, but Lucius simply sneered at Draco. Enjoy your foolish rebellion while it lasts. Then, with a swirl of his cloak, he vanished into the shadows, the last Death Eater following. Silence filled the corridor. Draco let out a shaky breath. Hermione lowered her wand. Are you all right? Draco didn't answer. He just turned to Harry, something unreadable in his expression. You didn't have to do that, he muttered. Harry smirked. Yeah, I did. Draco hesitated. Then, just for a second, he almost smiled. Ron groaned. Can we please go back to bed now? Harry chuckled. But deep down, he knew this wasn't over. Lucius had just lost, and he would never let that go. Draco sat on the edge of his bed in the Slytherin dormitory, staring at the dim glow of the enchanted green lanterns. His hands were still shaking. His father had let them go tonight, but not because he had accepted Draco's defiance. No, Lucius Malfoy was planning something, and Draco knew exactly what that meant. Harry wasn't safe. A knock at the door startled him. Before he could react, the door creaked open, and Harry slipped inside, his expression tense. We need to talk, Harry whispered. Draco exhaled. Yeah, we do. Harry leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Lucius isn't just going to walk away from this. Draco nodded. No, he's not. And if you stay anywhere near me, you're in danger. Harry scoffed. You think I don't already know that? He stepped forward. I don't care, Draco. You're my brother. That means we deal with this together. Draco clenched his jaw. You don't understand, Harry. He's not just going to come after me. He's going to make an example out of you. Harry's expression hardened. Then let him try. Draco let out a frustrated sigh. You're impossible. Harry smirked. So I've been told. The room fell into silence. Draco looked away. You don't get it. I've spent my whole life trying to be what he wanted. And now I've just thrown it all away. Harry sat down across from him. That's not a bad thing. Draco let out a humorless chuckle. You say that now. But what if I told you I don't even know who I am without him? Harry hesitated, then spoke softly. Then maybe it's time to figure that out. Draco swallowed hard. Before either of them could say more, the door burst open. Ron and Hermione rushed in, their faces pale. You need to see this, Hermione said urgently, thrusting a piece of parchment into Harry's hands. Harry unfolded it, eyes scanning the words. His blood ran cold. The Forbidden Forest. Midnight. Come alone. There was no name. No signature. But they all knew who it was from. Draco's breath hitched. It's a trap. Harry's grip tightened on the parchment. Yeah, and I'm walking right into it. Draco grabbed his arm. Are you insane? Harry met his gaze. If I don't go, Lucius will just find another way. And next time, he won't give us a warning. Ron groaned. Brilliant. We just escaped death, and now you want to run straight back to it. Hermione bit her lip. Harry, this could be worse than just Lucius. What if Voldemort is involved? The room fell into a heavy silence. Harry squared his shoulders. Then I need to be there even more. Draco cursed under his breath. Then I'm coming with you. Harry shook his head. No, it's too dangerous. Draco's eyes blazed. And you think it's safe for you? We both know he's after you, Harry. You need backup. Hermione looked between them. Then we all go. Harry sighed. If this goes bad, I don't want any of you getting hurt. Ron rolled his eyes. Mate, we already signed up for this mess. We're not letting you go alone. Harry hesitated, then gave a small nod. Draco took a deep breath. Then it settled. They had until midnight. And then everything would change. The Forbidden Forest loomed before them, its ancient trees swaying under the cold night air. Shadows curled around the thick trunks, twisting into strange shapes under the moonlight. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but that didn't matter. Harry had made his choice. Ron, Hermione, and Draco stood beside him, each tense with anticipation. This is the worst idea you've ever had, Ron muttered. Then why are you still here? Harry asked. Ron huffed. Because somebody has to make sure you don't get yourself killed. Hermione shushed them, her eyes scanning the darkness. We need to be careful. Draco stepped forward, his wand clenched tightly. It won't matter how careful we are. If my father brought backup, we'll be outnumbered. Harry glanced at him. Then let's hope he underestimates us. They moved deeper into the forest, each step crunching against the damp leaves. The air was thick with tension, every rustling branch setting them on edge. Then just ahead, a small clearing came into view. Lucius Malfoy stood in the center, his silver cane gleaming under the moonlight. He wasn't alone. 2 Death Eaters flanked him, their masks catching the dim glow. And behind them, Harry's stomach clenched. A cloaked figure stood at the edge of the clearing, his presence exuding a suffocating darkness. Voldemort. Ron swore under his breath. Hermione gripped her wand tighter. Draco inhaled sharply but didn't move. Lucius smirked. Ah, finally. His gaze landed on Draco. I expected Harry to come, but you, Draco, you continue to disappoint me. Draco straightened his shoulders. I'm done playing your games. Lucius sighed as if he were scolding a misbehaving child. You still don't understand, do you? You don't get to choose where you belong. Voldemort took a step forward, his red eyes glinting with amusement. Interesting. His voice was soft, almost whisper-like, but it cut through the air like a blade. The Malfoy heir betraying his own bloodline. Draco swallowed, but his wand didn't waver. I never wanted to be part of this. Voldemort chuckled. And yet you are. His gaze shifted to Harry. And you, my dear boy, always so willing to throw yourself into the fire. Harry tightened his grip on his wand. I didn't come here for games. Ah, but I did. Voldemort's smile was slow, deliberate. You are an anomaly, Harry Potter. A Malfoy by name, a Gryffindor by heart. So much conflict in one soul. Lucius spoke next, his voice sharp. We can end this right now, Draco. Come back with me. Show your loyalty. And all will be forgiven. Draco didn't hesitate. No. Lucius' expression darkened. Then you are nothing to me. Something inside Draco broke at those words, but he didn't let it show. Voldemort turned his attention back to Harry. And what about you, young Malfoy? His voice dripped with mockery. Do you truly believe you can escape what you are? Harry met his gaze without flinching. I'm not yours. Voldemort's amusement faded. Pity. Then, faster than anyone could react. Avada Kedavra. The green light exploded from Voldemort's wand. Harry barely dodged, throwing himself to the side. The curse struck the tree behind him, shattering its bark into splinters. Stupefy. Hermione shouted, sending a red jet toward the nearest Death Eater. He deflected it with a flick of his wand. Ron threw a hex at Lucius, but he sidestepped it with ease, smirking. Draco's heart pounded. This was it. His father raised his wand, aiming straight at him. Cruci, Expelliarmus. Draco's own spell struck first, ripping Lucius' wand from his grip and sending it flying into the trees. For the first time in his life, Draco saw something rare in his father's eyes. Shock, then rage. You dare. But before Lucius could move, Ron tackled him to the ground. Not so smug now, are you? Harry dodged another killing curse from Voldemort. We need to move. Voldemort raised his wand again, his patience wearing thin. You cannot run forever. But suddenly a deep, powerful growl echoed through the trees. The shadows shifted. Something was moving within the darkness. Something big. Then, stepping into the moonlight, its massive form towering over them. A centaur. No, not just one. A whole herd of them. Voldemort hissed. The Death Eaters faltered. Even Lucius went still. The leader, a centaur with deep scars along his chest, raised his bow. His voice was deep and unyielding. Leave. For the first time that night, Voldemort hesitated. Lucius, still pinned under Ron, sneered. You filthy creatures dare. An arrow landed inches from his head. The centaur did not blink. Harry didn't waste time. Draco, Hermione, Ron, run. They bolted. The moment they moved, Voldemort snapped back to reality. Stop them. The Death Eaters tried to follow, but the centaurs advanced, cutting off their path. A fight broke out behind them, shouts, flashes of light, the sound of hooves thundering against the earth. Harry didn't look back. They ran until their lungs burned, until the sounds of battle faded behind them, until the trees thinned and the castle lights came into view. Only then did they stop. Panting, Ron bent over, hands on his knees. That was too close. Hermione nodded, her face pale. We got lucky. Harry turned to Draco. He was shaking, his fists clenched, his expression unreadable. You okay? Harry asked. Draco exhaled sharply. I just hexed my own father. Harry managed a tired grin. Yeah, and you were brilliant. Draco let out a breathless laugh, but it held no humor. He'll never stop coming after me. Harry placed a hand on his shoulder. Then we'll be ready. Draco hesitated, then nodded. For the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid of the name Malfoy. Because he had something stronger. A family that chose him. The morning after their escape from the Forbidden Forest was tense. None of them had slept well, haunted by the encounter with Voldemort and Lucius. Harry sat by the Gryffindor common room window, watching the sun rise over the Hogwarts grounds. He could still hear Voldemort's voice in his head, cold, mocking, certain that Harry would never truly escape his grasp. Draco sat across from him, uncharacteristically quiet. His hands were clasped together, his eyes fixed on the floor. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat. He won't stop. Harry didn't need to ask who he meant. Draco looked up, his gray eyes filled with something Harry had rarely seen before, genuine fear. Lucius is relentless. He's not going to let this go. And Voldemort, he exhaled sharply. We humiliated them. Ron, sitting nearby, scoffed. Yeah, and that felt bloody brilliant. He stretched, wincing as he moved. I'd like to hex Malfoy Sr. a few more times, to be honest. Hermione frowned at him. That's not the point, Ron. She turned to Draco. What do you think they'll do next? Draco hesitated. Lucius still has influence. He'll try something more official first. Maybe pressure the Ministry, twist the truth to make us look like the aggressors. His jaw tightened. And if that doesn't work, he'll resort to more underhanded methods. Harry clenched his fists. He was sick of being hunted. First the Dursleys, then Voldemort, now Lucius Malfoy. He had spent his whole life fighting to prove he wasn't just someone else's pawn. He wasn't going to let Draco fight this battle alone. We need to get ahead of him, Harry said. If Lucius is going to manipulate the Ministry, we have to make sure the truth gets out first. Ron frowned. And how do we do that? It's not like we can walk into the Ministry and tell them, Oi, Lucius Malfoy's an evil git. Do something about it. Hermione sighed. No, but we can talk to someone who actually listens. Draco sat up straighter. You mean Dumbledore? Hermione nodded. He's the only one with enough influence to counter Lucius. If we tell him everything, he might be able to protect you. Draco's lips curled into a bitter smirk. Right, because Dumbledore's been so great at keeping people safe. Harry flinched at the truth in those words. Dumbledore had a habit of keeping secrets, of waiting too long to act. But right now, he was their best option. We don't have a choice, Harry said. Draco was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. Fine, let's go. They found Dumbledore in his office, as if he had been expecting them. The old wizard sat behind his desk, hands folded, eyes twinkling with quiet understanding. I assume, Dumbledore said calmly, that you have quite a story to tell. They did. Harry explained everything. The meeting in the Forbidden Forest, Lucius' threats, Voldemort's presence, and the attack. Draco added his own perspective, his voice steady despite the turmoil beneath. Hermione filled in the details they missed. When they finished, Dumbledore was quiet for a long time. Then finally he spoke. This is troubling, he admitted. Lucius Malfoy is not a man to be underestimated. And Lord Voldemort, his eyes darkened. His interest in both of you is significant. Harry stiffened. We know. Draco crossed his arms. So what do we do? Dumbledore studied him for a moment. I will speak with certain allies within the Ministry. While I doubt we can remove Lucius Malfoy's influence entirely, we can make it more difficult for him to act without scrutiny. Draco let out a breath. That's something, at least. Dumbledore turned to Harry. And you, Harry, you must be cautious. Voldemort sees you not just as an obstacle, but as a puzzle. Your connection to Draco, your shared bloodline, intrigues him. That makes you both valuable to him. Harry's stomach twisted. He didn't want to be valuable to Voldemort. Draco looked just as disturbed. Great. So we're basically his favorite new experiment. Dumbledore's expression was grave. It is not so simple. Voldemort values control above all else. He does not simply seek to understand you. He seeks to own you. Harry's skin crawled at the thought. He had spent his whole life fighting to be free. He wasn't about to let Voldemort take that away from him. Dumbledore stood. I will do what I can, but you must also prepare yourselves. The road ahead will not be easy. Ron groaned. Is it ever? Dumbledore smiled, but there was sadness behind it. No, Mr. Weasley. It is not. As they left the office, Draco was unusually quiet. Harry nudged him. You all right? Draco hesitated before answering. No. Harry didn't push him. He understood. They had won this battle. But the war was far from over. The tension in Hogwarts was palpable in the days that followed their meeting with Dumbledore. Harry and Draco couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Lucius Malfoy was far too proud to let their defiance go unpunished, and Voldemort. Well, Voldemort never let anything go. Harry sat in the Gryffindor common room, staring at the flickering fire. His mind raced with everything they had learned. Dumbledore was doing what he could to counter Lucius' influence, but Harry knew it wasn't enough. Not yet. Draco sat beside him, uncharacteristically quiet. He had been distant since their return from the Forbidden Forest. Something was weighing on him, but he refused to talk about it. You all right? Harry finally asked. Draco scoffed, running a hand through his hair. Brilliant. Just waiting for my father to ruin my life again. Harry frowned. Dumbledore will keep you safe. Draco shot him a look. You really believe that? Harry hesitated. Dumbledore had power, but Lucius Malfoy had connections. The Ministry had always been slow to act, and even slower when it came to standing against powerful families. We won't let him take you, Harry said, his voice firm. Draco exhaled, shaking his head. You don't get it, do you? It's not just about me. He doesn't need to take me. He just needs to make sure you lose. Before Harry could respond, Hermione burst into the common room, looking frantic. Ron was right behind her, his face pale. You need to come with us, Hermione said, her voice urgent. Harry and Draco exchanged a glance before following them out of the common room and down the corridors. They didn't stop until they reached an empty classroom, where Neville and Ginny were already waiting. What's going on? Draco asked. Hermione handed Harry a copy of the Daily Prophet. His stomach clenched when he saw the headline. The Dangerous Brotherhood, Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy. A threat to the wizarding world? Harry's blood ran cold as he scanned the article. It was a smear piece, written by none other than Rita Skeeter. The story twisted the truth, painting Harry and Draco as unpredictable, dangerous individuals whose connection to Voldemort made them a liability. Lucius had wasted no time. "This is bad," Ron muttered. Harry gritted his teeth. "No kidding." Draco's face was unreadable. "They're framing us, making us look like some kind of dark duo." "Brilliant." Ginny crossed her arms. "What do we do?" Harry was about to respond when the door burst open. Professor McGonagall stood in the doorway, her expression grave. "Potter, Malfoy. The headmaster wants to see you." Now, the walk to Dumbledore's office was silent. When they arrived, Dumbledore was already waiting, the newspaper spread out on his desk. His blue eyes were unreadable behind his half-moon spectacles. "I assume you've seen the article," Dumbledore said. Harry nodded. "Lucius isn't wasting time." Dumbledore steepled his fingers. "No, he is not. He has used his influence to spread fear, and fear is a powerful weapon." Draco scoffed. "Fear is the only weapon my father knows how to use." Dumbledore's gaze settled on him. "That is why we must be careful. Public perception is often more dangerous than truth." Harry clenched his fists. "So what do we do?" Dumbledore leaned forward. "We must be prepared for what comes next. Lucius Malfoy has drawn his battle lines, and the Ministry may act soon. But you are not alone." Draco let out a bitter laugh. "Feels like we are." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with something unreadable. "I assure you, Mr. Malfoy, you are not." The room was silent. The war had begun. The days after the Daily Prophet article were suffocating. Whispers followed Harry and Draco wherever they went. Students eyed them with suspicion, their conversations stopping the moment they entered a room. Even some professors seemed wary. "It's ridiculous," Ron grumbled as they walked to the Great Hall for dinner. "You'd think people would know better than to believe Skeeter's rubbish by now." Hermione sighed. "Fear clouds reason, Ron. People are scared, and Lucius is using that fear against them." Harry's jaw tightened. "It's working." Draco remained silent, his expression unreadable. He had stopped reacting to the stares, the hushed voices. But Harry knew it was getting to him. As they entered the Great Hall, a low murmur swept through the students. Draco's grip on his wand tightened at his side, but he kept walking. Harry followed, his shoulders squared. If people wanted to believe Lucius' lies, let them. He wasn't going to cower. Then, just as they reached their seats, a voice rang out. "Should we really be sitting with them?" Silence fell over the Gryffindor table. Seamus Finnegan stared at Harry and Draco, his arms crossed. "If what the prophet says is true, we might be sitting next to the next Dark Lords." Ron shot to his feet. "Are you serious?" Seamus didn't back down. "Look, I know Harry, all right? But this thing with Malfoy," he gestured at Draco. "It's dodgy. And now the Ministry's looking into it." Harry's stomach clenched. "What do you mean the Ministry's looking into it?" Seamus hesitated, then muttered. "My mum wrote me. Said there are talks of an official inquiry." The air around them seemed to thicken. An inquiry meant the Ministry wasn't just letting Lucius stir up fear. They were listening. Draco scoffed. "Of course they are. Because who needs evidence when you have propaganda?" Seamus looked uncomfortable, but held his ground. "I'm just saying, people are scared. They should be scared of Voldemort, not us," Harry snapped. The hall had gone completely silent. Even the teachers were watching now. Seamus swallowed hard but said nothing. "Enough," Hermione said sharply. "We are not doing this here." Harry took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Draco, however, looked like he was barely holding himself together. Without another word, he turned on his heel and walked out of the Great Hall. Harry hesitated, then followed. Underscore 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 underscore. Draco stood at the edge of the Black Lake, staring into the dark water. His posture was tense, his hands clenched. Harry approached slowly. "You all right?" Draco let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, just brilliant." He shook his head. "Do you ever get tired of being everyone's favorite target?" "All the time," Harry admitted. Draco sighed. "I knew my father wouldn't let this go, but I didn't think he'd turn the entire school against us." Harry hesitated. "You're worried about what the Ministry will do." Draco didn't answer immediately. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "They could take me." Harry frowned. "What?" Draco turned to face him. "If the Ministry believes my father's lies, they could say I'm a threat. I don't have Dumbledore's protection like you do. They could take me away, throw me into Azkaban, or worse, send me back to my father." The thought made Harry's blood run cold. "They wouldn't," he stopped. "No, they would." Draco scoffed. "Exactly." Harry felt something deep and unrelenting settle in his chest. "Then we stop them." Draco arched an eyebrow. "And how do you suggest we do that?" Harry's mind raced. They needed proof. Something that would expose Lucius for what he was, something undeniable. "We need to get to the Ministry first," Harry said. "If we can prove Lucius is manipulating them, they'll have to listen." Draco looked skeptical. "And how do you propose we do that?" Harry exhaled slowly. "We go to someone who actually cares about the truth." Draco frowned. "And who would that be?" Harry's expression darkened. "Sirius." Sneaking out of Hogwarts had never been easy, but under the weight of Lucius Malfoy's influence and the Ministry's growing suspicion, it felt impossible. Yet, Harry and Draco had no choice. If they waited too long, the Ministry would act, and Draco could be taken away before they had a chance to stop it. The plan was simple: get to Grimmauld Place, find Sirius, and figure out a way to expose Lucius. The problem? Hogwarts was on high alert. "I still think this is a terrible idea," Hermione whispered as they huddled in the shadows near the Room of Requirement. "McGonagall will kill us if we get caught." "She won't have to," Ron muttered. "The Dementors will do it for her." Draco exhaled sharply. "Look, we don't have time for this. If we stay here, I'm as good as gone." His voice was tense, laced with something Harry rarely heard from him, fear. That settled it. Harry nodded. "We move now." With the invisibility cloak draped over them, they slipped through the corridors, avoiding patrolling prefects and Filch's ever-present scowl. The biggest obstacle, however, was getting past the enchanted barriers Dumbledore had placed to prevent unauthorized exits. But that's where Draco came in. As they approached the front doors, Draco reached into his robes and pulled out a small silver key. "What is that?" Hermione asked. Draco smirked. "My father isn't the only one who has connections." With a whispered incantation, he pressed the key against the doors. The air shimmered for a moment, and then, just like that, the enchantments flickered. Just enough for them to slip through. Ron gaped. "You had this the whole time?" Draco shrugged. "I had my suspicions we'd need it." They didn't waste time. The moment they were free of the castle, they sprinted across the grounds toward Hogsmeade. Every shadow felt like an enemy. Every gust of wind felt like a warning. But they made it. Once inside the village, they ducked into an alleyway. Hermione pulled out the old, battered boot they had enchanted earlier. A port key, courtesy of Fred and George's illicit experiments. "You sure this will work?" Draco asked. Hermione shot him a look. "No, but it's the best chance we have." They grabbed hold of the boot. Harry counted down. 3, 2, 1. The world twisted. Underscore 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 underscore. They landed hard in the dusty hallway of Grimmauld Place. "Bloody hell," Ron groaned, rubbing his back. Harry was already on his feet, scanning the dimly lit house. It was quiet. Too quiet. "Sirius," he called out. A moment later, footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Then, Harry. Sirius appeared, his dark eyes wide with shock. "What are you?" His gaze flickered to Draco, and his expression darkened. "Why is he here?" Harry stepped forward. "We need your help." Sirius hesitated, then nodded. "Come inside. Tell me everything." Underscore 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 underscore. Sitting around the kitchen table, Harry explained everything. The Daily Prophet article, Lucius' influence, the Ministry's growing suspicion. By the time he finished, Sirius' expression was unreadable. "That bastard," Sirius muttered. "He's always been good at playing politics. But even for him, this is bold." Draco crossed his arms. So, what do we do about it? Sirius tapped his fingers against the table. We need proof. Something that ties Lucius directly to his manipulation. And I think I know where to get it. Harry leaned in. Where? Sirius smirked. The Ministry. Draco blinked. You're joking. Sirius' grin widened. Not at all. You want to expose Lucius Malfoy? Then we break into the Ministry and find the evidence ourselves. The room fell silent. Then Ron groaned. Brilliant. We're all going to die.